Hi, this is Rima Laibow. I'm the Medical Director of the Natural Solutions Foundation, and I am reporting to you from Geneva, Switzerland, at the end of what should have been the final day of the working process of the 31st session of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. I say should have been because Brazil threw a spanner into the works for every developing country, and I'll tell you about it in a few minutes. First, I want to tell you about yesterday's big news. Now, attending Codex meeting is like wading through a swamp of details, tiny, tiny, tiny details, and then suddenly seeing something important float by, and if you don't wake up and reach out and snag it, you'll miss it. What we snagged yesterday was the following information, which of course you won't see reported in the mainstream media or even in the reports of anybody who wasn't here. WHO and FAO, the parent organizations of Codex, have initiated a data system, an information system, to track contamination of genetically modified foods in conventional foods. Low-level contamination will be tracked by WHO and FAO because they consider it a problem. I consider it a problem too. Any genetically modified foods are dangerous, and they permeate our food system. So only organic or homegrown foods that you know the origin of can give you safety from the many dangers of genetically modified foods. Well, WHO and FAO know this. And so in order to track the contamination, they've set up a system. Now, the United States forbids identifying foods as containing genetically modified components or ingredients. Therefore, it is not possible to identify contamination because no tracking is possible. If you can't track the food because it's not labeled or identified, then it's impossible to say where it came from and where the contamination came from. So the United States will be out of Codex compliance. That means any other country, even the tiniest country in the world, can take it to the World Trade Organization and hold it liable for huge trade sanctions. That's interesting. What it also means is that Codex can no longer refuse to allow or to require the identification of genetically modified foods in international trade. That's a huge win for our side. Now we have to help the developing world exploit that win. Today, for instance, we made a very good contact with one of the more advanced African nations, which has a moratorium on genetically modified food, and we've been invited to go to that country and give scientific presentations on the dangers of genetically modified foods, which they do not have at this point. That's the kind of work that we're doing to protect your food, to protect your food safety and your access to clean, unadulterated food. But that work takes money. By the way, the fact that there's a fix-in on Codex for supporting genetically modified foods was very much in evidence when yesterday the chairman started screaming, literally screaming, at countries which were voicing their concern that genetically modified foods are dangerous and that the genetic material that's been introduced wanders into every cell and has unpredictable results. The chairman was screaming at Sudan. The chairman was screaming at Iran because they were bringing up valid, legitimate, life-saving concerns, and Codex does not want to hear those concerns and certainly doesn't want them shared. Codex is a rotting organization. The $200,000 necessary to hold the second executive committee meeting later this year is not available, and therefore the executive committee, which meets in secret, by the way, will only be able to meet one time this year. Codex is rotting in another way. Brazil, speaking for all of the developing countries, made some wonderful points. This is the spanner that it threw into the works that I mentioned earlier. Brazil pointed out that unless countries can come to Codex unless the small and developing countries, the poor countries of the world, have an opportunity to attend all of the meetings, then the decisions that Codex takes supposedly on their behalf have no meaning. They're illegitimate. That it is up to Codex to make it possible for every country to participate, or the Codex decisions do not represent anyone. Wonderful. That could only happen once the disaffection that, frankly, we've been trying to sow in the Codex members, once the disaffection had reached a boiling point, and once the bullying of the United States and the other developed countries, Australia, New Zealand, the EU, and their partners like Argentina, once that bullying had become totally intolerable. And I must say the Natural Solutions Foundation has had a significant role to play in helping countries feel that they didn't have to take that bullying any longer. Now, the United States has been bullying countries as big as China, the most populous country in the world. For instance, China is the world's largest pig meat raiser. The EU is the second largest pig meat raiser. And both of those countries forbid something called a beta agonist, which is a chemical given to pigs to make them fat. People eat the beta agonists, or the products that come from the beta agonist, which are usually more toxic than the chemical itself, and then they have medical problems. What does a beta agonist do in your body? Well, it causes heart problems, it causes breathing problems, it causes strokes, it causes low blood pressure, it causes quite a number of problems. And if you don't know that the pork that you're eating has been subjected to this chemical, which is forbidden in China, which is forbidden in the EU, and which is forbidden in all but 20 countries of the world, and of course it's allowed in the United States, then you're going to have health problems. You won't have any idea where they came from, and they could kill you. So this is a very dangerous chemical. It shouldn't be given to animals to fatten them, and Norway, as a matter of fact, made the point that it's unethical to use veterinary drugs in order to achieve increased growth, and that it was cruel to the animals and it's bad for people, and it's an unreasonable thing to do if you have any ethics at all about how you raise animals. That was brushed aside by the chairman. But China, which tried to make the point that this chemical should be forbidden worldwide, was forbidden from making that point by the United States at the last Committee on Veterinary Drug Residues, which was held in the United States, because the Chinese delegation was denied its visas to come to that meeting. Can you imagine that? The United States denied visas to the official Chinese delegation so that they couldn't make that point. Then China pointed out in the meeting the decision that Codex had taken without their input was not valid. The EU delegate pointed out that it was no accident that the two major pig-producing banned the drug, and only the U.S. permitted it. Lo and behold, that was another piece of disaffection. That was another piece of discontent. Now, Codex is a topsy-turvy world, where what seems good is really bad for us, and what seems bad might turn out to be good. One of the things that's really bad is that the United States is now the chair country of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. It's been in charge of it all along, as I've told you, for a long time. It's been in charge of it, and it supports whatever the multinationals who sit on its delegation want. Whatever biotech wants, whatever the chemical industry wants, the drug industry wants, that's what the United States pushes. The chairman is now a United States bureaucrat who is unfortunately in a position to further that agenda even more strongly. That means that everything that we do, the Natural Solutions Foundation, and that's you, everything that we do has to be more focused,